PlayStation 2 is the best-selling system of all time. The last official numbers that came out from Sony on this was at 160 million. And while that eventually might get beat by the Nintendo Switch, if it's right at its heels on it, that's still the official standing as of right now. Now, was this the best system of all time since it sold the most, or was there some other factors that made it sell so much? Kind of a combination of both, I believe. A big part of why it sold so much was that it was also a DVD player, and at the time when it came out, DVD players were just starting to become the standard, and so they were starting to get in pretty high demand, but they were still a little expensive. I want to say that a DVD player on average was like about $600 or so back in those days, in the early 2000s. But with the PlayStation 2, it was a DVD player, and you can get it for $299, let alone that it was a new system from the Sony PlayStation. And so the Sony PlayStation, though, did have a big name behind it, though, and because the first one just sold incredibly well and had and really gained a lot of respect in the gaming community. And so you couple that with it being a DVD player, and so a combination between the two, I think, is what really helped the system blow up at first. But then you also just got a lot of incredible games on this system from a lot of different genres and a whole lot of games as well too. And you had a lot of the main, most of like the big name games from the third party publishers. Chances more than not we're going to go onto the PlayStation 2, outside of from like other exclusives, right? So, obviously the Nintendo ones, and then eventually Microsoft had its own exclusives. But other than that, though, most of the major third-party games also came out on here, or at least came out on the PlayStation 2 more. And because they had the higher install base, they were just tended to be more popular on the PlayStation 2. It wasn't quite the most powerful system in this generation, for the sixth generation, but the graphics were still pretty impressive at the time, and the controller was pretty good overall. And so, really, the library of this system is really legendary. And so I have 10 games here that I want to show off that for me are my personal favorite, but there's so many others, though, that I wish I could name here. And so I would definitely like to hear what your favorite games on this system are, as there's so many to discuss on this system. And that's a big part of the fun of it, is that, really, this would be, if you could only have one system forever, this would probably be one of the better ones to choose, because you're getting a lot of quality games and a whole lot of variety of them too. So starting with my number 10, I have Jak and Daxter, The Precursor Legacy. And this is one of the first games on the PlayStation 2 that really made me put some time into the system, as it's a bit of a collectathon 3D platformer. And so because of that, it's my favorite Jak and Daxter game. I think 2 and 3 are really good, but I don't know, for some reason, Jak and Daxter just works best to me as just a more standard 3D platformer. And the first one did that really well. It was one of the first games that I can think of from this era that at the time we didn't have trophies, right, and all, but that I'm pretty sure I 100%ed this game, as far as like collecting everything, like all the precursor orbs, all the flighting scout things, and all the just like the regular orbs and all. And I just had a blast doing it the whole time. I think that the level layouts are really well done, and how everything is pretty seamlessly built together was pretty impressive. And the graphics and animations were really stunning back then. And so just overall had a really fun time with this game. That and the sense of humor and all is pretty hilarious. And the character designs and the overall world that you live in is just very, very creative. Kind of similar to what they were doing with Crash and Bandicoot, where it gives them personality and the whole world of personality, with not only your main characters, but then also some of the villains and all, and just the overall world. And just a real joy to play through this game. And it's some of the camera and controls haven't aged 100% the best, but it's still a very enjoyable game, and definitely, like I said, right, one of my favorite platformers on this system, and definitely fun to go through. But even though I prefer this one over 2 and 3, those two also are pretty excellent as well too. But at my number 9, though, I have Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Now, there's no denying this game is, the biggest game on the PlayStation 2 in terms of size, scope, things to do, and I believe it was the number 1 selling game on this platform as well too. So there's the PlayStation 2, and there's Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. That game would eventually get ported over to the Xbox, but it really made its life here on the PlayStation 2. And to say this game was huge is an understatement. It really took the open world formula that uh, Vice City and the Part 3 did, but just really expanded it out more where now you have three cities to visit and then the areas in between. So all of what's San Andreas, which is basically the kind of like a state, but I would say more like a region, right? But kind of think of like really the area of California from everything. Well, California and like Nevada, right? If you kind of just take that part of the map, right? Just draw like a circle around Las Vegas, San Francisco, and Los Angeles, and that region in between, along with the cities, is kind of what San Andreas is. And it's all set in the time of the 1990s where hip hop was very dominant, so the soundtrack alone is just amazing. I enjoy playing this game, listening to that Radio Los Santos. It really reminds me back of my high school days, along with like Radio X as well too. They got a lot of cool alternative rock on there, and some other cool music as well too. And just overall, really brings you into the 90s, and it's got a fun story to it where you're out to try to get revenge on who killed your mom, and then you get into some family drama, and then eventually you gotta represent your gang, and it's just a lot of fun. And obviously it's very controversial like all the other Grand Theft Auto games, but this one took it a bit up though, right, with the whole hot coffee thing. And so if you don't know what that is, basically what I understand is that people were able to find like a hidden mission in this game or something that was very sexually explicit, is from what I recall. Something about like you get a date, she invites you over for hot coffee, and then you kind of let's get it on, something to that effect. But I think eventually they ended up pulling that version off of the store shelves, I think, or they had to rate the game adults only, one or the other. But the game was very highly controversial, but that didn't stop the huge sales that this game got. And definitely it's a lot of fun. So many things to do in this game, and you'll have hours and hours of fun with this game. A lot of cool celebrity voice actors as well too that actually fit the roles pretty well. Everyone from like Samuel L. Jackson to Chris Pine to James Woods to Kid Frost and some others in there, and just a lot of fun to play through this game. But at my number 8 though, I have Silent Hill 2. And Silent Hill 2 is, it's definitely, I almost wanted to rank it higher, but this system just had so many good games though. And so on that note there, the fact that this one I have at my number 8, I had to stop and think about it for a bit because this is just truly an amazing game. Ultimately, what it comes down to, I think, where I didn't quite place it higher is because the actual play mechanics of it, like the combat, so to speak, it's fairly generic. I mean, it gets the job done for the kind of game that it is, but not, anything too special. But the atmosphere, the story, I mean, this game is definitely one of my favorite, like, horror or survival horror games. And so much of the strength of this game is just the overall psychological terror that this game brings, as you're not only dealing with monsters and things like that, but it's what these monsters are, why you're in Silent Hill, the mystery about this letter that you get from your dead wife, telling you to come over to Silent Hill. All of that is a very intriguing mystery. And what I love about this story is that it doesn't spell it out for you. It's sort of, I mean, it kind of does in a way, but there's so much depth that you can get into the story as you start unraveling things and its themes. And that is the beauty of it, and why this game is just highly talked about a lot. I mean, I've seen so many cool retrospectives on this, and I always get like a different take on, the meaning of the story and all, or different perspectives, that it's very much enhanced my own interpretation of the game. And part of the fun of the game also, right, is listening to those interpretations, because there's a lot going on, though everything can seem a bit subtle as far as how it spells it out for you. But between the visuals, the music, the story that it's trying to tell and all, even if it seems a bit obscure and all, it all is very powerful in what this game is trying to do, and just an absolute amazing game, and I really enjoy it. And even though we do have the remake that's out there now, I still feel like this one brings a certain flavor to this game that I don't consider really one or the other better. I just consider them like two different flavors of the same game, and you're getting an absolute amazing experience with them. So don't sleep on this one here, right? And just, just go for the remake. I feel like this one you'll get a little something out of it as well too. And really excellent game. Again, the controls can be a bit wonky, but for the most part though, it's truly excellent. Let's see. And so then at my number 7, I have Kingdom Hearts. And so Kingdom Hearts is about as magical as it sounds. It's taking the world of Final Fantasy back, mainly more the Tetsuya Nomura Final Fantasy, or Kitase Final Fantasy. And then what I mean by that is like from, the kind of newer, more modernish style that was being, that was coming out for Final Fantasy, starting with like Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 10, that kind of character design, as opposed to like, Amano's, I think that's his name, the previous artist on the Final Fantasy games. And so, but you take that kind of character design and all, because Nomura, he had a hand in creating the character designs on this, and maybe even might have helped direct to some extent, I'm not sure. But you take that and you couple that with Disney characters, so everything from your Mickey, Donald, Goofy, Pluto, and a lot of different Disney worlds. So like everything from let's see, there's Pinocchio to Aladdin to Tarzan and Alice in Wonderland, and so all those cartoons that we grew up with, and so you mesh them both together, and as weird as it sounds, it actually works really well to make this incredible fun story that is truly magical and brings the best of both worlds out. And the story to this one it can get a little complicated in some sense, but it's still for the most part pretty easily digestible, where for the most part what's going on, and the themes are very loud and clear and nothing too crazy or hidden. And I say that because if you do like this game, if you don't know anything about Kingdom Hearts and you like this game, there's sequels out there that are really good. It's just that the story does get really convoluted, which I actually kind of like in a way, but just know that it does get very convoluted down the road. But either way, though, just this first game still is my favorite one, and a lot of it has to do again with the story, right? That I feel is just more easier to understand, and the play mechanics in it all are still good, even though sometimes the lock-on mechanic or the camera can not be the best. But just exploring these worlds, and it was a lot of fun. And what's cool is that when you're visiting these Disney worlds, it's telling its own story of it, like the overall story of Kingdom Hearts, but somehow they're able to weave in the stories of the Disney cartoons into it as well, and it's done fairly seamless. So I thought that was pretty impressive how they were able to pull that off. But great graphics, amazing music also, and just overall a very good vibe on this game, and definitely one of my favorites on the PlayStation 2. But then coming in here at my number, 6, is Shadow of the Colossus. And this game, in a weird way, kind of, I almost compare it to Silent Hill 2, where so much of this game, as far as the strength of it, is the atmosphere, the subtle storytelling that it's doing, but it's there's a lot of themes and a lot of things to unravel in this, even though it doesn't quite spell it out for you. So all of that is cool. But then the overall concept is I just thought was really original, where you're in this vast, almost like vacant land, and there's really very little life forms around, but the game starts out where you're on a horse, and then you're taking a woman that's like wrapped in a blanket and all. She seems unconscious, and you take her to this temple, and then you get this message that basically to bring her alive you have to kill these 16 colossus. And so you set out to find them with your sword, giving you a shining light beam that'll point you in the right direction. And so then when you get to these colossus, they're just really breathtaking in scope. The first time you see them, you're like, oh my gosh, wow. And there's 16 of them, and so some are bigger than others and all, but they're all very creative, all because they're all like like puzzles that you need to solve on how to take them down. And that's the big fun of this game. It was just, the first time you played this game is definitely the best because you don't know how to beat them, right? And so just trying to solve the puzzle on how to take them down is really fun because you got to climb on them and finding their weak spots, and all of that is just a real big blast. And then the setting around them too and all is really unique, and some of them get really huge in scope, right? And just can look really intimidating trying to take these down, but that's a big part of the fun of the game. And so it's a very sort of quiet game in a sense that there's not a whole lot of story being told to you. You have to sort of unravel things on your own to some extent, but it really makes it feel like you're in this isolated land and trying to save your beloved, and just a magical experience. And definitely this game has always been talked about how that video game should be considered as art, and this is definitely a strong candidate for why that conversation is out there, because it's hard to not look at this game and think like, what an incredible piece of art, right? With the graphics, well, at the time, and then the story that it's trying to tell you, and just overall, it's really powerful and one of the best experiences you'll have on the PlayStation 2. This one that I'm playing here is the PlayStation 3 version. I didn't have access to play the PlayStation 2 one because the PlayStation 2 one also it's a bit rough, right, with the frame rate, and so this PlayStation 3 one cleans that up a lot. And then there's also the remaster that came out on the PlayStation 4, which is really stunning looking, a little bit of a different atmosphere to it and all, but it's still really impressive though. But however you choose to play this game, it's a really impressive journey, and one you won't forget anytime soon for sure. Let's see, but then for my next one here, coming in at number 5, I have Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty. And with this game here, oh man, this game is, at one point when I played this game, I determined that it was my favorite game of all time after I beat it. In retrospect, as I've gone back to it and all, it's not quite that, but I still feel that the first time that I played this game was truly a memorable experience. And a lot of it just had to do with, I know that there's some of the criticism of this game at the time when I played it. I actually didn't think there was so much criticisms because, if you've never played the game, I don't want to spoil it too much, even though it was something that was, it was because it was something that took people by surprise. But I'll just say that it definitely made me feel like I was out there on a mission on my own. Well, I had support, right? But for the most part, physically, I was out there on my own, and almost like a fish out of water sort of story in a way, right? And so I could appreciate it for that there. But outside of that, though, the play mechanics are really excellent, where they expanded a lot from what they did in the previous Metal Gear Solid game. And so I gushed about that game in my PlayStation 1 little top 10 that I did. But more play mechanics here. So now you can aim in first person, which really changes things up a lot. You can hide bodies in lockers, and there's just a lot of new settings that gives you some fun scenarios to try, or even if they're things that you did in the first one, some fun new takes on them, with a lot of fun new bosses to take on. And yeah, so the overall gameplay is just really excellent, just improved a lot from the first one. But you get this very convoluted story, which can be a bit odd at times, but what it was telling, I'm always so impressed with how much this game really almost foretold the current times that we're in, with a lot of things that we're facing, with everything from like manipulation of the news that we're hearing, or AI as well too, and just how that can affect just the world order and everything. It's quite eerie almost how this game almost hit a lot of things head on that. And so kind of fun to play this game, because it came out in 2001, right? On how just almost 25 years later, almost, right? On how much of the things it almost predicted. But a really great game overall. Great voice acting across the board. David Hayter's back as Snake, and he's still awesome in that role. And all the new villains and are really impressive. Well, there's not as much as like there was in the first Metal Gear game, but there's definitely so there was Foxhound in the first Metal Gear game. Here they're known as Dead Cell, and they're a pretty good group and all, even though there isn't quite as many. But just a lot of memorable characters in it, and just an amazing overall journey that you'll take in this game. And it's definitely one that leaves you pondering a lot of things, even if there's some moments where things can be a little bit too over the top, a little silly at times, but that's kind of the charm of a lot of Hideo Kojima games, which you either kind of like it or hate it. I was on board with it. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, definitely one of my favorite games on this system. I'll never forget the first time I played it. It just absolutely blew my mind. But at number 4, I have God of War 2. And and really, God of War 1 and 2, I almost like it almost the same. I'll give an edge slightly to this one here just because I felt that the level pacing and just overall structure of the game was a bit better than part 1. But either one, both of them are really excellent. But this one here, though, they polished a lot of things up from the first, where the gameplay just feels a little bit better. And so, again, there's a bit more, the level structures I feel are just overall done better. Some more bosses in there and just more grander epic moments, even though the first one had a lot of them too also. And the graphics are slightly improved on it as well. Still running at 60 frames per second. Still awesome hack and slash, sort of swinging your chain blades around action on it. Kratos is still a cool character, if a bit one-dimensional, but he's still a lot of fun because he's basically a vessel for you to just, let some aggression out, right, and go, hunt down some gods and monsters, in this Greek setting. And the opening that you're seeing here of the game, God of War games started getting known for like the first half hour or so, right, give or take. It's just going to open up in this really bombastic way with like a really cool like boss that is kind of hunting you down throughout the level. So in the first one we had the Hydra, and here we got the Colossus of Rhodes, right? Colossus of Rhodes, I think that's its name. And so much fun. Some of the best action, one of the best action games I've ever played. It's truly stunning. And yeah, this one is just a lot of fun, and so it has some decent puzzles in it, and just I really enjoyed the new God of War games, but this one here, this more basic action kind of style, I end up preferring more though. Still, I just feel like it's just more. It doesn't get bogged down as much with a lot of like options and customizations and all. And for me personally, I prefer that more. But yeah, just an amazing game. But then coming in at my number 3, though, I have Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. And I mean, I like this one just slightly more than Metal Gear Solid 2, but not by a whole lot. I mean, like I said, right, all of these games on my list here, if I haven't said it already, they're all in my top 100 games of all time. I mean, they're just that amazing. And right now, I mean, really starting with like Shadow of the Colossus, I mean, they're really like all almost like there's just like a hair of a difference as far as how much I like one or the other more. But Metal Gear Solid 3, it's so you're in the jungle now, and this game takes place back in the 60s, so during the Cold War. So because of that setting, it gives the game very much like a spy, sort of like almost like a James Bond sort of feel to it, but then a little bit of like Rambo, even though I guess Rambo was in the 80s, but because you're out in the jungle, and just some really cool characters again, really cool bosses. Overall, a great story, and the gameplay is expanded on more, where now you can use camouflage to hide, because you're in the jungle, and that's a lot of fun to, explore all the different outfits that you get. And the other fun part about, being in the jungle is that, well, you got to hunt for food. And so just, tracking down like animals to hunt, and, and to keep your stamina up and all, definitely gave a new edge on the gameplay. But it was done in a way where it's very simplified, so it's not like overly complex, but still a lot of fun. And again, definitely gave a sense of immersion to this one that, like I said, right, really made you feel like you're out in the jungle. And that with the really great graphics for its time, and the sound effects too, also, I still feel are some of the best sound effects in a video game on this one. Just hearing the birds chirp in the background and all the wildlife out there as you're, crawling through the grass or slowly inching your way through a swamp. It really makes it feel like you're in the jungle, and was really impressive how they pull that off. And yeah, definitely a great game. I really enjoyed this game. And there is a remake also that came out of this one recently. This one still, though, I enjoy it a lot. I feel like the motion captured, or the acting, I guess, it was done in this game, it lends for me a little bit better in this style of graphics, in a more realistic style that they did with the remake. But either way, though, however you choose to play this game, it is truly amazing. And I mean, it's known to be, for many people, their favorite Metal Gear Solid game. Not quite mine. I prefer the first one a little bit more, but really, Metal Gear 1, 2, and 3 are excellent. And this one is my second favorite. But either way, though, yeah, it's just really great. And once you play it, you'll never get that Snake Eater song out of your head. And now you got a tree frog that you're thinking about. But let's see. But then coming in at my number two, though, I have Dragon Quest VIII Journey of the Cursed Keen. This was my first Dragon Quest game that I played. And I mean, it was on the PlayStation 2, right? And it, because the Dragon Quest, we had 1 through 4 that came out on the Nintendo, but I never owned the Nintendo. And then 5 and 6 only came out on the Super Nintendo, which I also didn't own. Well, actually on the Super Famicom, which obviously I didn't own because I was only in Japan. And then 7 came out on the PlayStation, and I remember I almost bought it one time, but I never quite did. And so 8 was the one that I finally said, okay, let's give it a shot. And actually, one of the main reasons that I got it for was because they had a demo of Final Fantasy X. So I was like, okay, well, I gotta, or not Final Fantasy X, I'm sorry, Final Fantasy 12. So that was one of the main reasons that I got it. But I'm still glad that I did, because what I ended up getting was Dragon Quest VIII. Was an amazing JRPG, and what I loved about it so much was that, again, I grew up with like old school RPGs from the 8-bit days, and so this game was really pretty, gave me a big open world to explore for, pretty big for its time. And I just thought it was so cool on how expansive the open world was, where something like some other games were getting a little bit more linear, but this one really leaned into that, right, where you have this big open space to explore, kind of like back in the day, only now with bigger, because more technology and all. Simplified turn-based battle system, but I still enjoyed that. It was a bit of a grind, just like back then, but I enjoyed that. But you get these really charming characters. The artwork from Akira Toriyama was really incredible, seeing it in 3D. And it was also my first Dragon Quest game, so it was also my first time experiencing that kind of artwork in a Dragon Quest game. The really amazing symphonic soundtrack as well, too, was just full of energy and a lot of heart to it as well. And after playing this game, I was like, okay, I can see why Dragon Quest is really popular in Japan, and for many people there, and maybe here also, almost on par with like Final Fantasy, if not even better for some people, because it's different than Final Fantasy. Where Final Fantasy, I think the best games have just been really great because of their epic scope and grand world-shattering events and high drama and all. And it has some silliness to it, but that's, I feel like, why a lot of Final Fantasy games are just popular, the ones that have been good, right? With really cool characters and all. Where Dragon Quest, it's a bit more grounded in a sense, where it's not quite as, grandeur in scope, although it can be, but it's just really charming and definitely gives you this fun sense of adventure that I feel in that aspect there, it does it a bit better than a lot of the Final Fantasy games. And this game here was just a great example of that, and just just a fun adventure to go through with a really cool villain that you're chasing down in Dolmegas. He's a bit creepy too also, because I thought these games were going to be a bit cartoony, but they can get kind of dark though. But really what makes a lot of it stand out is just Akira Toriyama, rest in peace. His artwork just really brings this game to life, and a lot of other all the other Dragon Quest games as well too. And simplicity is, for me, this game's biggest strength, because you're not bogged down by a bunch of crazy battle systems and all. You just get to what's there though is really polished, and it just helps for you to just be engaged in this fun story. You'll enjoy the grind too also, and just graphically really beautiful, and just a fun overall adventure, and a long one too. You're going to be here for a while, because just doing the main quest, I remember the first time it took me about 70 hours, so just kind of get ready for that. But yeah, Dragon Quest VIII, amazing game. But coming in at my last place here, or I'm sorry, my first place here is Final Fantasy X. And this game, I played it like right after I played Metal Gear Solid 2, so that was a heck of a time, because at one point I considered these two games my two favorite. And Final Fantasy X, it's not quite my favorite Final Fantasy, but it's for me, when it comes to story, which is one of the things that really hooked me on this one, it has for me maybe not necessarily the best story, but the story that is the most best told. And by what I mean by that is that it is very laser focused. What it's the story that it's trying to tell you. It's guiding you from one place to the next, and everything makes sense. There's, it's explaining to you things at a very appropriate pace. The twists and turns that happen and the revelations that happen are really well built up, so that when the big moments happen, they have a big impact on you. And oh man, some of the moments in this game are just really grandeur in scope. Again, Final Fantasy games are really good at doing this, but then also so a lot of heartbreaking moments, a lot of high drama in it. And I mean, there's unforgettable moments in this game that I'll always remember, especially from the first time I played it. And you get really great graphics for the time and a great soundtrack. And for me, one of the best turn-based battle systems as well too. So much fun with this game. I absolutely loved it, and one that I'll never forget. It is a bit, one of the trade-offs, so because it tells such a really precise, great, well-focused story, is the reason it can do that is because the game is pretty linear. You're going from one place to the other, and there's not a whole lot of exploration you can do. I mean, you can do some towards the end, but even then it's still a bit limited, where you're not really like traversing an overworld like you used to in previous Final Fantasy games. But at the time when I first played it, and even now, I don't seem to miss that though, because everything else about this game is so well done. And even then, it does actually have a lot of cool side content you can do that is also really rewarding. So that kind of makes up for everything for otherwise it being a pretty linear game. And Final Fantasy X is just truly fun, and the characters are just a lot of fun and amazing. And Tidus, yeah, he can be a bit annoying, but he's still full of heart though, and all. And I do enjoy his optimism. Yuna, she's a great female protagonist, and her overall role in the story is amazing. And Kimari, he's pretty cool, and Waka as well too. Riku, Lulu, they're all great. And then also one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Final Fantasy character, who's not the main character, but he's in your main party, and that's Auron. His story, his acting, the actor that does his voice, his design, his overall role in the plot, it's just truly outstanding. And yeah, definitely one of my favorite video game characters of all time. And just some of the funnest that I've ever had in a video game, and one of the most dramatic games I've ever played. I mean, there was moments, like I said, in this game that just definitely, brought the feels out, and it was definitely memorable, and just an incredible game. I absolutely adore this game, and I try to play it at least like every 2 years or so. I just love going through this journey, and it's going through Spira. It's just a lot of fun. But that's what I got for the PlayStation 2 here. Again, these games are all amazing. All, for me, in my personal top 100, would easily recommend any one of these. And the great thing about it is that I have a few different kind of genres in this game. In this list, because that's what the PlayStation 2 gave. It gave so many cool different genres to explore. And so hopefully this gave you some insight on some of those games there. But let me know what some of your favorite games are, as I'm always interested to see what games people were playing on the system, because they had such a wide variety of games. And so I'm sure that there's plenty of others here, right, that could be on anyone's top 10 list as well. But until the next.